for the Film Crickets with Jay Fortier and Chris Martineau. On this week's episode, Jay and Chris are joined by their special guest from Boston's 98.5 The Sports Hub and Rock 92.9. Hardy, Jay, Chris, and Hardy review the 1985 American adventure comedy film, Peewee's Big Adventure. Does it stand the test of time? Let's find out. Your Film Crickets are on now.
All right. Hey, friends. My name is Jay Fortier. I'm along with my good friend Chris Martineau.
Hello, Jason. An adventure?
Well, it's in the title.
I guess so. You really can't argue with that. It's in the title. All right. I guess so.
Welcome to the Film Crickets. And we have a special guest today, as Steve had mentioned, and that is Hardy, and he is from 98.5 The Sports Hub and Rock 92.9, right?
Yes, yeah. And Sirius XM, lithium and turbo. I was just telling this to someone the other day, and they're like, "What radio station are you on?" I said, "I'm actually on 4 of them."
Wow!
But only two of them at the same time. So, through the magic of technology. But whatever, it's fine.
We have yet to find the technology to clone you properly. Yeah. So we are simply recording you and sending you different places via the air.
Well, this is great. Thank you for the invite. Any chance to talk about something other than Tom Brady, I welcome it. So this is wonderful.
Well, I was going to quit the show, but then I decided I'd come back, so it's okay.
Okay, good.
Anyway, today's movie is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Mm-hmm. And this, Hardy, this was your doing, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, and I've heard some of the other shows, and this is Radio 101. Never tell the audience what they're not going to hear, but I'm going to do it anyway because I had said I would like to do the movie Payback. Despite Mel Gibson, you have to divorce the art from the artist, And, you guys, I know you do 80s and 90s movies, and that was pushing the envelope. I think it's a 99 release. It's kind of a film noir, crime, but it's a really funny movie. And I think it was a blessing in disguise when, we decided, it's not actually available to stream anywhere, so we wouldn't be able to, rewatch it before doing this. And also, I think it's kind of out there. Like, not a lot of people saw it or dismissed it as kind of like, this is some kind of like cop and robber movie. It's not. It's a really, really cool movie. So I would still I would encourage anybody, if it comes on again on any one of the services, to watch, the Mel Gibson movie Payback. I think you'll be really, really pleasantly surprised how good and funny and cool that movie is. But I mean, how do you get, cooler or funnier than Pee-wee's Big Adventure? I mean, it is an action comedy.
It is absolutely an action comedy adventure.
Yeah. So I don't know how many times I've seen this movie. I would put the soft estimate at 20. So
really? All right.
Oh yeah, whatever you want to talk about with Pee-wee, I'm up for it. Let's go.
So Hardy, so one of the first questions I usually ask is, when was the last time you saw this movie? So you're saying a soft estimate would be 20. So have you been recurrently watching this movie annually, or is there a time when those 20 was all bunched together and it's been a while?
Yeah,
so that's what I want to know.
I'm sure I saw it when it first came out and saw it, multiple times in the 80s and throughout the 90s, but I most recently watched it probably 6 weeks ago. With my kids. I have a 15-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. And it's an interesting age for kids because they will start to like the things that you like and some of the cooler things, and it's interesting to find, especially for movies, like what you can both appreciate. And this may be the first one other than Pacific Rim. Which I'm a sucker for, hey, are there big monsters or are there big robots? I'm in. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm going to like it. The Transformers movies are yuck. But is it Godzilla? Is it King Kong? Oh, is it robots fighting aliens from the ocean? Pacific Rim. So that was the first movie I think all three of us watched and liked, and the second one was
No.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the second Pacific Rim.
Oh, no, that's
God. I
garbage.
was having flashbacks. Oh, God. Let's go through PTSD.
No.
What a whole bunch of horse shit that movie was. Oh, my God.
The first one
All
is
right.
like so much fun, and the second one is such crap. But I tried getting them both to watch Napoleon Dynamite with me, and my daughter was in till the end, even though she didn't quite get it. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to get it. I don't know that I get all of it. You know, why it's funny, why you're laughing. You just are. My son tapped out of Napoleon Dynamite. He's like, it's too weird. It's not for me. I'm like, okay. But we all sat down and watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and we all loved it. So that was about a month and a half ago.
I was going to say, put brakes on something. Wait a minute. The other one was too weird, but Peewee was not weird. Is that the ground rules here? Is that where we're going
they have
with
totally
this?
different vibes, though.
Yeah, I understand that. But
so,
wow.
you know what I mean? Like, he comes in like hot. Boom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything, that's Pee-wee. Besides first comes in with the goofy bike thing, which is hysterical. He's racing on the Tour de France. And then a little later, that's when he wakes up and everything is just bonkers. Because I have to, my wife can't stand the sound of his voice. So she... I don't know. She claims she's seen the movie, but I'm not sure because she won't sit down and watch it because and I was like, well, if you get past the first 5 minutes, it becomes really funny. It's funny anyway.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the dream sequence to open and okay, there's a little weirdness there, but the opening scene in his house with the, what do you call the machines?
Rube Goldberg.
Thank you, the Rube Goldberg machines, which I understand, and on some fan forums, people who want to create, backstories for these characters, they're like, oh, that's how Pee-wee makes his living. He creates these devices, these Rube Goldberg machines for other people. I'm like, who came up with that?
Easy does it. The first rule of Tim Burton, these weird Tim Burton movies, is that don't look for deeper meaning. It's just, it is what it is, man.
Yeah.
You can't look for it. That's the last thing you look for is for things to make sense. Come on now.
Right.
That's goofy.
But the farce and the folly of it, just in that opening scene, and Pee-wee is he's the ultimate man-child. It's he is, what every kid would think of doing if they grew up and could do anything they want. They would, make pancakes, bacon. They would sprinkle Mr. T cereal on top. They would take 2 bites and then throw it away.
It's so funny.
It's so wasteful.
All that work, all that setup from the night before for the because you got to reset a Rube Goldberg machine every time you do it. So the night before, when he's putting on his weird little PJs and combing his non-existent hair and probably brushing his teeth and counting all the strokes, he's putting together his breakfast for the next day so that he can walk down, eat the 2 bites and take off.
And it's set up by the alarm to run to get the toast on time. He runs to get it.
None of it makes sense, but all these things pop up just in the opening scene alone that I find myself doing, we're close to 37 years later or something, if there's a roll of Scotch tape, nearby, I'll go up to the producer's window and I'll take it and I'll tape it up on my nose and I still pull Pee-wee moves all the time. And that's in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
My favorite part of that is when he goes, hello, while after he's already halfway through and he goes, hello, he just talks to himself.
So full confession, and we're right here at the opening scene, and it really does set the mood because I'm watching this movie and he wakes up, he's in his PJs, he's got the bunny slippers. Next thing you know, he's playing with toys on the floor. He's doing things with fire engines and stuff. Then he's brushing his teeth, and I'm just my wife and I are watching. I'm like, what is happening?
Did you not see this before?
Oh, no. I used to watch I used to watch this movie all the time, but I haven't seen it since I was about 14,
Okay,
15.
So let's go through that little round there. How we always ask that question.
All right.
Okay.
So since I already kind of did that. So Hardy says he watched it 6 months ago. I had this one on
6 weeks ago. Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah.
So 6 weeks ago, I had this movie on and high rotation back when I was on those formative years. I watched a lot of movies.
Yep.
And I always say which one was in high rotation. I had seen it a lot. It kind of made the rounds with all my friends' houses because that's what you did. You went to a friend's house, you shared a new movie, you watched it. And I would watch it by myself just because it was there was something about it that I recognized as a teenager was so weird and it was right up my alley.
Right.
Even though he's such a child and everything he did was not cool. Like even back in the days in middle school when nobody's cool.
Right.
I could recognize when something's not cool, right? Yes. But I just kept watching the movie because there's something about it and that's what I was trying to think of when I was rewatching it this time. Like, what was it that I'm not going to say, I'm ready to say if a movie doesn't hold up. Don't get me wrong. But what was about this movie that I liked then, right? So Jay, I'm going to go to you. When was the last time for you?
I had bought it on Apple, for the computer. Just I was like, well, it's like the cheapest price I can find right now because I'd owned it years ago on tape, and then I wanted to buy it, but it's like, sometimes you don't want to blow too much money on something you already owned in the past, So then I was like, "Oh, sale, $6.99." So I got it, but unfortunately, it's on my computer. So I was like, man. I was like, I want to watch this with my daughter. She likes it. And so I had to plug it into, from the computer into the TV, which, that kind of sucked. But, so it was great to revisit it again. I did not see it in the theater. Did you?
I didn't either.
It's been so long. I'm trying to think. 85, I would have been 14. I probably did, but I can't say for sure. I mean, we are talking 30 from years ago. So.
I have that crazy memory myself. So I remember being in the car in the back seat. My brother and his friend we were all going to the movies, but they were going to see Peewee, and I was going to see my second viewing of Weird Science.
Oh. Formative years.
That was another one of my, possibilities that we could have done was Weird Science. And that's another one I've probably seen.
We could probably, make that a future episode.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
By all means.
So
go ahead.
But Ma, I just wanted, Hardy, you brought up this idea about the man-child, right? So we're watching this thing and I just, scene after scene, I kept going, what is happening? What is going on? And why do I want to keep watching this? You're completely intrigued by everything that's happening. I am not willing to dismiss any of it. A grown man playing with toys, getting his Rube Goldberg machine, getting into an argument outside with the neighbor saying, I know you are, but what am I, infinity? What is...
And they're both adults.
What is happening? And why... And they're both adults. What? Why do I want to keep watching this? Why do I think this is funny? And I don't know. I think there's something intrinsically whimsical but dark about the whole thing. That's what I don't know.
Well, I have the answer. I know why.
Hardy, tell me. All right, tell me.
Here's why. Here's why this movie is eminently watchable, even though it's weird and unexplainable. First of all, I think the viewing public, when it first came out, had a baseline knowledge of Pee Wee Herman and the character. So you're willing to accept a lot of this stuff. Oh, he's this overgrown kid. Now, that doesn't explain away why my daughter was willing to sit through it, but they watch a lot of weird crap now between, SpongeBob and even some of this, even some of the cartoons that are geared toward kids. There's a lot of adult humor in it, and they just kind of accept it. Is it fun? Is it a good story? They're in. And that is, I think, the underlying simple brilliance of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in that it is a 90-minute film. And according to Paul Rubens and Phil Hartman wrote the screenplay with him. They had another guy in on it. They literally went out and bought a book, like how to write a screenplay. And it follows like the textbook way you're supposed to make a movie. It's 90 minutes long. The screenplay is 90 pages long. The first act is about him and the bike. He loses the bike on page 30. He goes about trying to find the bike in Act 2, finds the bike on page 60, and then the third act is wrapping it up and doing all the celebration and stuff. It's a 3-act movie, 90 minutes, 90 pages, textbook. They teach this movie, I read online, in a lot of film classes as here's this off-the-wall Tim Burton weird-ass movie. Here's the secret. It is a textbook 90-minute comedy film. If you want to write one, here's how you do it. And that's what they did, and that's what we got. And I think that's why it's so watchable, even though it's so weird.
Yes, I'm with you, and now that I know that, I can absorb some of that brilliance. And knowing Tim Burton as basically a rebel in and of himself. Like, he was a Disney artist who got fired, and then he was looking for work, and then eventually they threw him. I forget the machinations where eventually he became the director of this movie, but it's great, and he's done great stuff since then. And I love that idea that you just gave me about that it's textbook. I did not know that. However, and I'm going to counter that with, it's going to seem like I'm arguing against what I'm arguing for. Each of those acts is completely disparate. I can't think of the word. Separate from the act before it. The only thing that links them is Peewee and a bicycle. The middle act is all, I swear to God, the middle act is all just separate vignettes that don't mean anything and are ultimately weird and have no explanation. Can you explain to me why Large Marge is in this movie? What is the point of Large Marge?
Remember her. Like, how many people? I'm gonna give you something right now. All right. This is.
And I'm saying, by the way, I am not bagging on this movie. I think this movie is fantastic, but I am asking a legitimate question. What is the point?
I texted somebody and said,
all right, go ahead,
that I am recording for Pee-wee's Big Adventure tonight. And what does he write? Yeah. What does he say?
Oh my God, Large Marge, fucking classic.
Tell him Large Marge sent you.
That's the first thing he thought of. It's that good.
Now, okay, so when they made the movie again, since I just watched it a few weeks ago, I'm like, I'm not going to watch it again. I want to, have some of this be spontaneous. But I read up on it to, see if there was anything that I was missing on it. And there's so much good stuff about this movie that I learned. But one of the things I learned was that Paul Rubens went to the actress who played Large Marge. And after they've shot her scene, he said, no matter what this thing does in the theater, no matter who sees it or why, you are going to be the one that people remember. And I guess not long before she died, Paul Rubens went and saw her, and she said, I'm so glad he told me that, because I would have been shocked by people coming up to me saying, oh, you're Large Marge. It's like, why do you remember? But I was prepared for it because Paul Rubens told her while they were making it, everyone's going to remember you. Everyone's going to remember this scene, if nothing else. So
I want to talk about that's fantastic, right? So it goes to the idea, the instincts, right? The instincts of the writers, the actors, and the director about why people are going to like this movie. This movie is intrinsically dark, but it's not. Like, it's got a lot of obvious Tim Burton-esque. The dream sequences with the clowns and the tilted floor, and the scary stuff like Large Marge is scary but funny all at the same time. But what's genius about this movie is a couple of things. And then I want to talk about, got two big ideas. One is that in other movies, it's a fish out of water tale. No doubt about it, right? Pee-wee lives in his own little world, right? And in his world, in his little town, everyone loves Pee-wee, and I don't know why. Everybody adapts to Pee-wee. Pee-wee doesn't adapt to the world. Everybody adapts to him.
It's true.
Right? He's got a neighbor who knows to close the window because he's about to get sprayed on. And is smiling about it. He goes to the magic shop and he's got all of his trick crap ready for him. He goes to the bike shop and he's already ready. That's his day. His errands are ride down the kids, the middle school kids or the BMX kids love him. So he doesn't have to adapt to the world for whatever reason. The world has adapted to Pee-wee Herman. Now, you take Pee-wee out into his road trip part, Act 2, like you said, Hardy, right? Now you're expecting that he's going to have to somehow make his way in the cold, hard world. What happens? The world again adapts to him. He doesn't adapt to the world. Case in point, the tequila scene. When I first saw it, now everybody knows the tequila scene, right? Tequila, right? When I first saw that, I just thought it was funny because he was doing a funny dance. And now, second time I saw it, since I saw it last night, I'm like, wait a minute. What's funny about this is that dance is ridiculous, for one. Second of all, he's in this, it again shows the point. They end up loving him.
Well, it's actually when he starts breaking shit.
So again, he doesn't. But still, it's like,
break dance.
That's a good point.
And then he starts smashing glasses.
That's a good point. Yeah. But it's the world adapts to him. He doesn't adapt to it.
The sneaky best laugh in that biker scene, Chris, is when he gets on the bike and rides away, and he fishtails and goes through the sign. Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys are MacGruber fans. I put it up there with Step Brothers in like the guiltiest of pleasures in terms of things that shouldn't be funny but are just hysterically raunchy. Really, the funny stuff. In the MacGruber sequel that they did, which is like an 8-part series, I think, on Hulu, there is an homage to that scene where MacGruber hops on a bike and he's going to speed away, and instead he just like fishtails out and falls down in the parking lot. And I laugh at my ass off. I'm like, oh, that's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's where that scene gets inspired from. But you're right. He's this child, almost like, the kid in the neighborhood, the goofy one that everybody likes. And if one of your neighbors was, setting off his sprinkler and spraying in your windows, you'd kill him. But if it's the kid doing it every day, and it's like, oh, you're so cute, and you close the window. He's a grown man. It's his house.
Great. I know.
Oh my! But you're right. Whether it's Crazy Larry in the magic shop or it's Chuck at the bike store, they're all just Dottie. Dottie, who obviously wants other things from him. She's still fixing the bike and making the horn loud enough for him and everything else. So
yeah, making him extra goofy for him. And another movie that's kind of like that, but they don't do it as properly. I'm not bagging on the movie, but when they did the Brady Bunch movies, right? It was the Brady Bunch in their insular world, and then when outside, it was the real world, right? So it was really fish out of water, and that got laughs, but that's almost cheap. Like this movie, it's ballsy for them not to take that tack. They said, no, we're going to make the whole universe is going to get on board with Pee-wee. And you look at Pee-wee and go, why? Like, who would actually saddle up to Pee-wee Herman? But then you ask yourself, wait, I would saddle up to Pee-wee Herman because what's he got is non-threatening. He's asexual. Right. He doesn't, you know what I mean? He's got no...
If E.G. Daily is coming on to
asexual.
You and you have zero interest, then you are definitely a man-child. You know what I mean?
It is funny because he is a clownish character, this character that Paul Reubens created, but you get the sense as you're watching it, whether that's the way it was intended or the way he portrays it or whether it's Tim Burton's direction or anything, you don't really laugh at Pee-wee. You're kind of laughing along with him and the situation. He is not the guy taking the majority of the pratfalls, even though he does some of them, and he gets himself into these circumstances. But you feel like you're kind of along with him and supporting him in all this stuff. And whether he's running away from Simone's boyfriend or in the stolen car, it's all stuff you're always kind of rooting for him, but you're not laughing at him. He's not a clown. He's your guy. He's the most unlikely hero in an action film.
Well, did you guys?
I can think of.
I did not up until I checked out the different cast members. Did you know who the biker mama was?
I did. I learned it.
It's amazing.
Half an hour ago, but. It's amazing, and now that I think about it, sure. That's her. You want to tell him?
Peterson.
Go ahead, tell him.
Also known as Elvira.
Get out of here.
And by the way, she looks better
Elvira.
today.
Yeah.
She still looks amazing today.
Yeah.
So as biker mama, I'm assuming she's the one who says, I say, you let me have him first. That's her. Okay.
Oh. I would have. I'm surprised I didn't pick her out of.
I think it was the way her makeup was, and some of her hair was different.
Weird.
I mean, like,
right.
obviously, many people were used to her with the black wig, but I've seen her many times without it, and I recognize her now more than then. Like I've seen her so many times in that movie, and never knew it was her.
You know, his reaction. You know, his reactions in that biker scene. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to use the phone is a line that gets uttered a lot, but the other things, and sometimes really the subtleties of his performance when he says, "I say we'll let him go." No, and the look on his face is just, you know, he thought he could get away with it for a second. I'm telling you, some of the best comic lines that he delivers in that movie. There's one at the beginning when Francis is first trying to, you know, buy the bicycle off of him, and Francis is retelling the story. Peewee, don't you remember the first day you brought it home? And Peewee is walking the bicycle away and giving him the mm-hmm, and he lets Francis finish his thing, and he turns back and he says, "I love that story." And again, Paul Rubens had been doing the character. He knew what to do. He knew what would work. But still, like, seeing it on film and, you know, going back and watching it now for an 80s comedy, it's really pretty subtle and pretty good for that type of movie. And the performance, it's a really underrated, I think, comic performance from Paul Rubens. It's really good.
Well, how about
I will.
When he meets Simone and they're hanging out watching the sunrise in the dinosaur mouth. I mean,
wow, say that sentence one more time. Say that, how ridiculous that goddamn sentence was.
They're watching the sunrise
say it
in
again.
the dinosaur mouth. When her boyfriend is listening in, her giant boyfriend.
All right.
But I just love the, you know, he's trying to tell her to go out into the world. And she goes, "I know, but," and I love his line when he's like, "Everybody I know's got a big butt. Oh. Come on, Simone. Let's talk about your big butt." Right.
And that's what the boyfriend hears.
And then she says something
crazy.
like, "I've never had anybody put it to me this way before."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's great.
The big butt line wasn't bad enough, and then they top her with that.
As a kid
that's
watching that, it's like, I didn't even get that, you know, the first time. That's like after like 10 viewings, and you're like, oh, he's putting it. Oh, okay, now I get it.
But if I can, and I'm going to counter, we talk about subtle humor, and the thing, again, I was watching this movie, and I just kept saying, what am I watching? Like, it mystifies you. That it drags you in because you really are invested, and you don't want to not watch it, but you're always going, what in the hell just happened? What did I just see? So we're at the end. He finally gets his bike, but he has to go into the pet shop, right? The burning down pet shop. And every time he goes in, he sees the snakes. And he rescues the cuddly animals first. And every time he goes back to snakes, he looks at him and goes, "No." And then eventually he has to suck it up. Like every time he passes, he goes, "No." And he makes a face. And every time the face gets worse because he knows the inevitability of, I eventually have to rescue the snakes. And I don't like snakes. And then finally it's that last shot. It's right out of a Looney Tunes cartoon. It's a hard cut to him just with the eyes over the tank, and you see the snakes, and he goes, and then he's running out of the thing with a pet shop with the snakes in his hand, and he passes out. I mean, every single time you cut to him, he looks more and more like oh God, no, not yet. I can't do it yet. No, and eventually it's like, I put it off long enough. I have to get the snakes, and it's just, it's
one of the cool things about his character is Pee-wee's kind of a shithead. You know, he's not like, you know, a good guy, a goody two-shoes. He appears that way in his, you know, in his dress and in a lot of his mannerisms. But, you know, whether he's being an asshole to everybody at the meeting where he gathers them around, it's like, oh,
I don't know.
What does it mean? I don't know. Is that something there for the entire group, Crazy Larry? Or, you know, whether it's, you know, his refusal to save the snakes until the absolute end, or, you know, given the trick gum to Francis and his father, it's, you know, he's kind of a dick, but again in a childlike way, to where it's like, well, it's all part of this I don't know. Peewee is a more complex character than I think we ever gave him credit for. When you really start looking at it, and you don't want to suck all the fun and the humor out of it. But if we're talking about why the movie works? It works because it's not just a comic book. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. Yep. And you get drawn into Peewee, and I know. Look, you can say a lot about his voice, and I understand why that would rub maybe Wendy or whoever the wrong way. But if you listen to his comic performance, and you got to watch it a couple of times, I guess, but I rewound a few things, is that he has 3 different voices, right? He's got the high voice. He's got the, I'm not even going to bother trying to do it. He's got 3 distinct tones, and you don't know when each one is going to come up. You have no idea. And that's what kind of draws you in. Like, whoa, like it gets you every time, because it's not like he always does this in every situation. He mixes them around, and it keeps you invested in this guy.
If it was 100% the high thing, it wouldn't work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the whole thing.
If it were Bob Goldthwait,
right.
No.
If it was the
whole thing is that it gets annoying,
the
right?
entire
Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
film, that wouldn't work. It's just that he brings it down to to the other voices that he has, which is it's funny.
When he's apologizing to Francis and his father, and I'm really sorry. That's kind of where he's doing his, his grown up voice, and he's got he's got his normal Peewee speaking voice. He's got the yelling voice. It's varied enough to where you see, I guess you see other actors. I'm using the word loosely, like Adam Sandler trying to do it with a character. I've seen 15 seconds of Little Nicky to know that I never want to see that movie in its entirety.
I was just going to say Little Nicky.
Yeah, here's a guy who's going to do a voice. He's going to play a character for the entire movie, and by all accounts, it fails miserably because you can't do that. You better have the best voice and the best character of all time if you're not going to give any nuance to it. And there's a lot of nuance to Peewee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is. It's once you look at it, and that's the thing that I missed when I was younger. Right? And I'm not saying I'm Mr. Sophisticated now, but it's like that's why it works for kids, because you watch it because here's a grown, like you say, here's a grown man acting like sort of my age, and then later on you realize that there's a lot.
We're talking about how he is a man-child and how the world adapts to him and all that, and he does what he wants. It's funny, he's a man-child who can only take so many nursery rhyme songs from the hobo who's in bliss singing those things. At first he's like, coming round the mountain, and then you could see they're changing, and you could see Peewee slowly getting annoyed, like a little more annoyed, and it's just brilliant. It's just facial.
Well, it's the breath from the hobo too. It's like shoe fly shoe, shoe fly shoe. And you can see him backing away from his breath in his mouth, and it's Jimmy Crack Corn when he finally has enough. Jimmy Crack Corn, and
then he launches off the freaking train
and finds himself right at the Alamo. Yeah,
so I think it's a sign.
Yeah,
at the sign.
So,
and that's that point. Like he just doesn't keep singing the songs. Like he can get annoyed just like everybody else can get annoyed. So he's kind of normal in that regard, right?
She's giving the tour, and everyone around him is in heaven. Like you see, there's this cowboy like right next to him, like perfectly. His eyes are so wide, and it's like I feel what he feels because I feel that way every time I'm taking some sort of a museum tour, and I'm listening to all this like history about this, that, and the other. Oh God, I'm looking at.
Yeah, Jan. So another thing I read was that Jan Hooks improv'd a lot of the speech that she gave on the tour. And a lot of it is, just come up with on the spot. But again, just the lines that she says, with lots of paint and glaze. And then when she asks, "Do we have any Mexican Americans with us today?" Like 2 hands. Well, buenos dias. And then in unison,
they're all happy.
Buenos dias.
And then she says, "I'm going to list all of the thousands of uses for maze or whatever.
All of which I will list for you right
only
now.
further keeping him from getting to what he thinks is around the corner or downstairs.
Yeah. It's and really for that type of movie, for when it came out, you would think it would be chock full of cameos with, people like that, or even the people who were on the TV show on Pee-wee's Playhouse. And guys like Phil Hartman, he's in the movie, but he's not playing his character because I guess there wasn't any spot for him in the movie. But Jan Hooks is in there. You mentioned Elvira. When it comes down to it, it's not like there's a lot of other actors that you can point out from that movie and say, oh, can you believe, so-and-so was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. There's really isn't another quote unquote star in the movie.
Hey, Milton Berle.
Yeah.
I forget Milton
as
Berle.
he was walking
Uncle
on
Milty
Hollywood.
was in the movie for 1 minute.
He's telling a joke, and Pee-wee
As
starts
he was
laughing
walking
behind
through-
him.
Oh, that's
through Warner Brothers Studio.
That's right. And Milton Berle does the great double take when he looks back to see who's laughing too loud. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is that.
If ever you want to bypass security, that's all you need to do, guys.
I say
That's
it's a
all you need
clipboard
to
and a
do.
confident wave. Yes.
Thank you.
Or
I'll
act
be this
like you
way.
don't
Thank
want to
you.
be there. You walk
Thank you.
past the security guard, just give him the. Can't believe what we got to do today, and just
You believe-
next thing you know, you're down at field level at Gillette Stadium. I do it every week.
Well, it's. I mean, obviously,
No, really,
he
I'm
does
with the station.
Even the moment where he's pretending to be a nun and then says, "I say, I'm going to start a paper route right now."
But and again, like one of those lines I find myself uttering, I'm sure, we all have our, one or two friends in our lives where if it weren't for movie quotes, you would have nothing to say to each other. One of my best friends is a guy, if it weren't for Ghostbusters, we would never speak. And it's just all you're doing is, saying those lines back and forth to each other. But when the kid is delivering his lines about, the Mother Superior, this is the greatest gift a boy could ever have. It's so wonderful. And then Peewee just pipes in with I'll say. That's what I say. Just to reiterate something and move on from the topic, I'll do that a lot. I'll say, I'm going to go start a paper route right now. It stays with you. Here it is, all these years later. And a lot of that stuff sticks. And I think it holds up. I mean, I'm not going to use my kids as the be-all, end-all evidence that the movie holds up. But if you can get a 15-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy to sit down and watch a comedy that was made decades before they were even born, and have it hold their attention and get legitimate laughs out of them and hold their interest for 90 minutes, I'd say that movie holds up. And I enjoyed every second of it watching it again last month. So, yeah, I'd say it holds up.
All right.
Jay, you want to... Let's hit it.
Time now for final judgment. Are you ready to rubber stamp this bitch? Here's the final judgment.
All right, so now it's time to deliver our final judgment. I believe that Hardy has already kind of said it. He feels as though if you want to restate it, that would be fine real quick.
Not only do I think
this
it
movie
holds up, but it passes the ultimate test, which is I think a lot of things in this life have too many degrees of grading, whether it's movies or pizza or music or whatever. And there's really only three categories. You have to see it. You can watch it or don't see it. I say Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you have to see it. If you're a movie fan, if you like comedies, if you're a fan of the 80s and, that whole vibe, yes, you got to see Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yes, it holds up. Yes.
Okay. Super. I agree. I would say it holds up. It holds up because of the weirdness of it. It's so off-putting, not off-putting in a bad way, but it keeps you interested because of its weirdness, because of its oddness, because of, you don't know, even if you don't know who, and most people didn't, or at least I didn't at the time, know the comedy of Paul Rubens. I did not know what was going on, what to expect, or who this character was. But the weirdness of it holds up. The intrigue holds up. It didn't. I don't mean it didn't make sense then, like it wasn't good. I mean, it didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense now, and it doesn't matter. It's really good. And I can understand why people would watch it and go, "What?" and not like it. I would get that. I wouldn't really argue with it too much, because if it's not your cup of tea, you're not going to like it. But man, I don't know. It goes. And again, I don't even know, like, I like bloody horror movies. I don't know why I would like this movie so much, but it's really good. It absolutely holds up 1,000%. No doubt about it. Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does. It's clean looking, by the way. It looks so good to this day. It looks like it could have been filmed yesterday.
That's something, not to let you finish, Jay, but I think there's a lot of movies now, because we live in this age of technological indulgence where anybody can make a movie. Anybody can, you've got the requisite, equipment if you've got a good enough camera and a tripod and a few lights. But a lot of them look like crap. A lot of them sound like crap. That movie that was made quite a while ago, holds up in terms of its look and some of the technical gaffes. There was a couple of them, I remember, in the original prints of the movie and the one that got shown on TV for quite a while, when he's pulling the chain out of his bike when he's going to lock it up before it gets stolen, you can see the chain coming up through the bottom of the little cargo rack on the back,
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. All right, that got missed. They left it in for whatever reason or something, but even that has been cleaned up and fixed a little bit in subsequent versions of it.
Yeah.
So
last night. I looked for it.
I don't know if they just cropped it a little bit on that one shot or whatever. There's other weird things. The pancake when it hits the ceiling. If you really watch it, I think it bounces before it hits the ceiling. So it's obviously like an inverted shot. They just dropped it on the floor and then turned it upside down. There's a couple of weird things in there that I'm sure they would do with CGI today, but the rest of it is really good. And there are still enough of the requisite Tim Burton, if this looks crappy, like the headlight glasses in the dark thing where it's very cartoonish, that's on purpose. It's supposed to look crappy. It's supposed to be a little Tim Burton comic-y in some points. But the other parts of it, you're right, Jay, the movie looks really good.
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, we have not mentioned Danny frickin' Elfman.
Yeah.
Wow.
So good. And the thing is, Peewee has a theme, and he transposes that theme for different moods and different times. So sometimes it's the same thing, it's the same notes, but he slows it down, he makes it minor, he makes it scary, but it's always Peewee's theme, and it's just so friggin' good. I confuse it a lot with Beetlejuice, like a lot, because it's the same kind of deal. But boy, is it good!
It's funny. I've forgotten the theme. In my head, before I watched it, but in my head I kept thinking it was whatever classical song that is.
Yes,
but it's similar though. It's a similar vibe when you hear it. It's I mean, I can see why I made that.
I guess
connection.
Elfman was reluctant to do it because it was, it's such a big job of scoring an entire movie, and it's not like writing an Oingo Boingo album for him where he was able to just write whatever he wanted, do whatever he wanted. No, he's got to, fit someone else's mood and do something else. So he was, he wasn't a film scorer. He was a rock guy, but he did it, and what a great gift to all of us, because he's gone on to, score so many, do such a wonderful job scoring movies, a lot of them for Tim Burton, but, his work is all over the place now.
He wrote the Simpsons theme song. He also, think about this, his movie that he scored was in the theater at the same time as Weird Science, which he had the theme song.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
How close?
With Oingo
How
Boingo.
close
I
was
mean,
it in
it's-
theaters to Back to School, in which he actually appears? Yeah,
I was just gonna say that.
yeah, it's got to be right around the
Yeah,
same
not
era.
far.
I should have looked that up beforehand, but oh well. Okay.
Nah, it's all right. Nah.
Back to School, I could have been 86. Actually.
Back to
A year
School
later.
was 1986. Very good. That's right.
It's a
That's
dead
right.
man's party.
Yeah.
Who could ask for more?
That weird.
Robert Downey Jr. in that movie.
And well, he's also in Weird Science. See?
Oh my goodness!
It's the 6
wow.
degrees of Danny Elfman.
Yeah, no doubt.
No, like there's so much like that's that back to me saying it holds up. I just think there's the humor is, like I said before, it's a combo of where kids can laugh and then it can go to where adults laugh about it. I still even the stuff I mentioned. How about the rodeo when he's dressed like the guy, the cowboy, and he gets yanked over the top? That's you, cousin. Uh-oh. Like it's just a simple uh-oh. And then like you hear like, hey, you might be going for the world record. And then he's trying to get revived, and he says the stupid line, and we're all laughing because everybody cheers because he says, I remember the Alamo.
When he has,
Oh yeah. I remember.
we could have spent the entire hour
The
just
Alamo.
like calling back lines and little scenes from the little vignettes when he's in the phone booth. You're in Texas? Here, I'll prove it. The stars at night are big and bright. Not to mention the entire end sequence when they're showing the movie and they're at the drive-in, which was used for a ton of movies, I guess. Same drive-in that they used in Grease, same drive-in that they've used in other movies. So they're there and they're watching, the James Bond version of the film, which is so good and so well done.
James Brolin. They choose to have James Brolin dressed like Peewee, but playing
ridiculous. They're going to turn the bicycle into the X1 motorcycle, but they're still going to have him wear the suit with the bow tie. And Pee-wee's on-screen cameo, Mr. Herman, paging Mr. Herman, you have a telephone call at the front desk. It's just great. It all works.
There are things that, and the callback to the beginning of the movie. There's things about me that you couldn't understand, shouldn't understand. Oh my God. That's Morgan
absolutely.
Fairchild, right?
I
Is that
know.
Morgan
I know
Fairchild?
you are.
Yeah.
But what am I?
All right, my wife.
That's so great. Oh, all right.
Wow.
Well, on that note, let's just, Hardy, you got anything going? I mean, I know you got some shit going, but I mean, like anything to plug, or if you just want to at least tell people
what? If
how
they want to find me,
you.
I'm generally on Twitter. Easiest way to find me at Hardy Radio, talking more about movies and music than I am about sports. But yeah, Sports Hub weekdays 10 to 2, Rock 92.9 weekdays 4 to 7. Sirius XM Lithium Saturdays and Sundays, and Sirius XM Turbo, the hard rock of the 90s and 2000s, or as we like to call it, Turbo. That's weekday morning 6 a.m. to noon Eastern time. So yeah, that's.
Well, I was going to say it's an entire show about a really fast snail. Not bad. All right, voiced by Ryan Reynolds. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Hardy. It was a pleasure meeting you. Hopefully, you can do the show again for another time later.
All right. Well, take
Thanks,
care,
guys.
everybody. Have a great week.